Welcome, low ego action heroes. This is Debbie Levitt from DeltaCX.com. We're a full service CX and UX consultancy. Check us out. We do projects, training, and consulting. And welcome to an impromptu micro lesson on what the heck can Axure do. With all of the fuss around Figma lately, a lot of people are wondering about some of the other tools that are out there. Axure is certainly not cheaper than Figma, but it is an alternative. And one that I'd like to talk about because it is my favorite tool, hashtag not sponsored. I've been using Axure since February 2011, and I became one of their recommended trainers in 2014. They do not pay me for any of this. I pay them. I pay for my licenses. I pay for everything. They have never paid me anything. And so I'm going to give you the good, the bad, and the other. As always, let's just take a moment to thank all of the junior, mid-level, and senior low-ego action heroes who are donating to the YouTube channel by clicking the join button. People are giving $3 to $10 a month, which keeps me in streaming software and in chocolate chips. Yum, yum. So thanks to everybody who's doing that. Totally optional, but always appreciated. Now, I'm happy to take all of your questions about Axure today, so just drop them into the live chat. Stream Elements bot running. Thanks, Stream Elements. Also not sponsored. Hi, Manuel. Hi, James. So I'm going to be taking your questions, and I'll be flipping my screen over to Axure so I can show you some of the things that I've done in Axure, and maybe we'll even build something a little bit impromptu if someone has a question. If you want to see more Axure in action, check out the playlist here on YouTube called Think Out Loud. The Think Out Loud series has, I think, 24 episodes, and half of them were planning fake research projects, and half of them were doing design in Axure. And I was doing design live with Thinking Out Loud, so you can hear how I make design decisions, and you can see some of the things I do in Axure, so you can check that out. Hello, Chukudi and Nedu. Good to see everybody from my time zone showing up. So let's just talk briefly about what Axure is and isn't, and then we'll flip over and we'll see a couple of things in action. So Axure is chiefly a prototyping tool. Now, that being said, you can do wireframing, you can do flowcharts, you can do wacky things. You can do some animations, but it's definitely not the strongest animation tool out there. You do have motion, you do have fades, you do have rotations, you have flips, but I'm not sure anybody uses that very much. It's a little cheesy sometimes. So usually I can cobble together some sort of animation. In fact, those of you who are familiar with the show and are familiar with the 14-second video that I run at the end of the show where the circles come together, I made that in Axure. I'm certainly no animator and no artist, and so it's good enough for me, but that is where I made that. So Axure certainly does have some animation, but again, probably not your strongest animation tool. Hi, Pedro says, thanks for, I've been following you. Thanks for passing on knowledge. Hi. Janice says, hi. Evan says, hello from what I'm probably going to mispronounce as Qatar. You tell me how it should be pronounced. I don't know. Axure is also not your strongest visual design tool. There is a pen tool. There are custom styles that you can make, so you have sort of a CSS thing, and a reusable kind of typographic and color things, which I'll show you in a moment. But other than what the pen tool can do, it's probably not your strongest visual design tool. A lot of people still lean on probably Affinity programs or Adobe programs, or sometimes Figma and other things for that. Remember that Axure does have plugins from, I think, Sketch and Figma, so take a look at that. It could be an easy way to take a file you've already started, bring it into Axure, and bring it to life with prototyping. James says, I know this is about Axure, but I'd like your opinion on Framer. I have not gone deep into Framer, so I cannot speak to Framer or some of the other tools, and I haven't looked at Just in Mind in what feels like 8 years, so I really can't comment very well on the other tools. I can't even comment very well on Figma and Sketch. I have used them very minimally. I'm on Windows, so Sketch was kind of a no-go for me until it became more in the cloud. So Sketch slammed the door on me, and that's fine. And it's funny, every time I work with someone in Figma, they're always apologizing for it. Has anyone else noticed that? It's always like, oh, I'm sorry it's so slow. I'm sorry it's disorganized. I'm sorry it's not coming up. I'm sorry it's doing this weird thing. Every time someone sends me a portfolio or something they made in Figma, as soon as I use my mouse wheel or I'm on a trackpad to scroll down, the screen goes blank. Not enjoying it. I pronounced it correctly. Awesome. And I also don't think Figma is a replacement for PowerPoint, because whenever I see people make a presentation in Figma and then somebody goes, yeah, send me that presentation, it's like, oh crap, that's not a PowerPoint file, like it's a Figma file. So yeah, but I'm not here necessarily to poop on Figma. We're going to talk about Axure. The key reason that I like Axure, and I think some of the key reasons we're going to talk about today, is because of realistic prototyping. Now, very often when I say realistic prototyping, what people think of is super visual design, typography, colors, images, and other effects. That's not what I mean when I say realistic. If I say high fidelity, that's what I mean. More visual design, more branding. But when I talk about realism or interactive realism, what I'm talking about is, can your prototype be used realistically? We are interaction designers, many of us, right? We're UX designers, we're product designers, we're interaction designers. We're trying to bring interaction to life. If your prototype does not have realistic interaction, I would say that you're not really bringing your design to life, and your usability testing is probably flawed or invalid. Hi, Malika. Good to see you. And let me tell you why. So very often, Figma, Sketch, InVision, XD, they let you string all of these screens together. And what happens is, someone who is, let's say you're doing a research study and you give it to a participant, all they can do is kind of walk through that thing based on what you've connected to each other. Hi, Shreya, and whoever LinkedIn user is. That's all they can do is kind of walk through, and that we call this a click-through model, because it allows people to click and move through a flow or process, but it doesn't always give them a lot of options unless you've built that into the prototype. But more importantly, and what we'll really focus on today, is it doesn't have realistic interaction design. So for example, let's say we're testing onboarding or registration. Can people type in an email address? Can they type in any information? If people cannot fill in a form field, this is already not realistic. Your usability testing of this prototype is not usability testing now. You're just checking if people can make it through a path you've built for them. And especially if you've only prototyped the happy path and they only have those choices, what are you really testing here? So very often when I'm doing usability testing on my Axure prototypes, I make sure to build them out to a good level of reality, even if they don't have super visual design or final typography or colors. And I can just say to people, you are trying to buy a thing, go. That's it. And sit back and see what they do. So that to me is going to give us the best possible look without developers building a real coded thing, which is always better, but sometimes not worth the time, and you don't have the people available. Hello, Pradyot. We haven't seen you in a while. Think a lot about the interactive realism of your prototypes. If people cannot move through things realistically, what are you testing? And are you still usability testing. Evan says, sorry to interrupt, is there a recorded version of this later? Yes, everything we do is archived on YouTube. So come on over to the Delta CX YouTube channel and subscribe over here. If you'd like to get some links to the YouTube channel or to join our Slack and or Discord communities totally for free, check out deltacx.com/links. All the links related to the show are there. So you'll certainly have the archive of this. It will be in the micro lessons playlist. Also, let me remind people over on the YouTube channel, we do have an Axure playlist separate from micro lessons. And currently, as of when I'm recording this in September 2022, we have 13 hours of free Axure lessons on there. It's my core skills video course, which I created myself. This is not Axure's program. I created the core skills course. I recorded it. It's me, and you can work along with me and pause the video. And I even give you some common mistakes people make at certain points, and you'll probably be like, yep, I made that mistake. So there's 13 hours of free Axure video courses on the channel. I hope you'll check them out and share that with other people. Carl says, testing stakeholder approval. The happy path is all they care for generally. That is true. And hi, Steph. Yeah, that's true. If someone says, hey, could people just eventually stumble their way through whatever the hell this is? Then sure, your Figma, Sketch, and Vision XD prototype is good enough. But if we really want to see where things are going right or wrong, we do want a higher level of realism. And the example I just gave somebody was when we did some research last year, we saw people go to a website where they could customize printing of promotional items. And there was, oh, thanks, Ajay. There was a box and it said, enter your Pantone color. Now, most of us know that, oh, thanks, Sarab. Most of us know that the Pantone colors are usually, if not always, numbers. And this person went to that box and wrote navy blue. If that person did that in our Axure prototype, we should probably do something about it. We should probably give them an error message that says, we're expecting a number. Not navy blue. There could be a zillion navy blues in the Pantone world, or I don't know which navy blue you're thinking. It might not be Pantone navy blue. We don't know. So remember that it's really important to build that out. And in Axure, you've got a lot of nice advanced features like conditional logic and variables, which don't mean much to the average person, but if you've ever done any coding, you know what I'm talking about, and it lets you build realistically. Manuel says, when using Axure for usability testing, do you have to prototype every use case or just paths based on the usability task? Usually I'm just prototyping possible outcomes based on the usability task. Sometimes if people go wild and click something totally unexpected, of course that won't work. But if it's related to the task, and especially error messages and error states related to the task, I will prototype. So if somebody has to fill out their email address and there's no @ sign, I'll give them an error message and say, this doesn't look like an email address, because I can do that in Axure. I can write conditional logic. If whatever the user entered in this field doesn't have an @ sign, show them this message I'm hiding behind the scenes. Larry says, I like to have a screen that pops up when users click on the unhappy path asking what they expected to happen. That's when I step in and interview them on that point. Right. If this is moderated, that's absolutely the way to go. If this is unmoderated, you can always prompt them for what did they expect to happen and hope that they answer in the unmoderated video. Steph says, I forgot. Axure 10, you can have components that adapt to their content size. Yeah. I don't think I've seen that yet. Components that adapt to the do you mean other than the dynamic panel adjusting for what's in the panel state, Steph, or did you mean something else? Nadu says, as Axure is paid software, how can one use it? Is there a free version like Figma? Axure currently only has a free trial, and I think an extended free trial for students. I do not think that they have a free version. Now, it's free to see an Axure prototype. If we're going to do usability testing or send a prototype to show our coworkers or our clients, they don't have to pay anything. They don't have to download Axure. Prototypes end up as websites with web addresses, so they can be opened on browsers, on a phone browser. You can use an Axure prototype on a phone. So that part doesn't cost anything, but to build or edit an Axure prototype, you do need the software, and I do know that it is rather expensive for many people. Steph says, like create a button, you can override the content, so you can have it fit to content. You can have small and super long on the same component. I'm not too sure what you mean. Maybe this is one of the newest features I haven't seen yet. Cohen says, great explanation and argumentation. Thank you. And again, Axure might not be for you even if you watch the whole thing today, and that's fine. It might be too expensive. It might be not a match. It does have a larger learning curve, but again, I have 13 hours of free videos on YouTube, and there's no obligation there. There's no affiliate code. There's nothing there that takes your money. There are ads, but I give our ad money to charity here on this channel, so I'm just trying to take YouTube's money and put it to a better cause. So yeah, let's ask our questions. But you know what? I think we got to see some Axure to even know what our questions should be. So let me jump into my Axure screen. Let's flip over. That should be this. Let's see. Yes, okay, so here's me in the chat room and the optional tip jar and Axure, the Axure workspace. So the Axure workspace is a little bit different than some of the other tools. It does work in the sense of panes, P-A-N-E-S. So you've got panes on the left, panes on the right. They are pages, which are, if you have a multi-page prototype like a website, there would be multiple pages here. Outline is everything that's on your canvas. So depending upon what tools you come from, think layers. That is your outline. We've got libraries and components. So libraries are the things you will drag out onto your canvas or workspace. You can have a library item can be an individual piece like a button or piece of text, or Axure has some default things, which I generally don't love, but they're okay, where they're kind of multiple pieces that come together with interactivity, like tabs and a carousel and things like that. So you can create custom libraries. So if you end up having components that work for your design system or your company, all you have to do is come up here and say new library, and you can build your own Axure library. You can pass it around your company, and there you go. Manuel says, one issue I had when trying to do an unmoderated Axure prototype usability testing, it's hard to find a tool that allows an Axure prototype link. UX Tweak does, but it's kind of expensive. Totally agree, Manuel. That's how I ended up finding UX Tweak, was I was looking for a tool that really knew how to work with Axure prototypes, and UX Tweak was the one. I do know that User Zoom can work with them, but they're even more expensive. So yes, look out. Last I saw, Maze doesn't work with it, and some of the other ones just cannot handle an Axure prototype URL. It's weird. Let's see. Okay, so we've got our elements here. Over here, our pane is interactions, notes, and style. Now, so let's take a look. This is one of the very complex prototypes from last year. Elijah started it, and I finished it off, so special thanks to him. For those of you who know Elijah Claude, super genius. And this is a product page for a customized mug, a mug that might have your logo on it. Now, there's lots of funky colors. You see things are blue and yellow, and there's lightning bolts and whatever. These are not going to end up in your prototype. These are Axure's hints to you about things that you have built or done. So basically, blue means a dynamic panel. Again, I've got a lesson on that. I'm not going to be teaching you Axure today. You can see my lesson videos for more information on what the heck is a dynamic panel and how do you use it. A lightning bolt means something has interactivity on it. Yellow is a hidden dynamic panel. Purple is, purple's a dynamic panel. Blue is what? Hotspot. Oh, they changed it since Axure 9 and I'm still not used to it. So let's take a look at this in the browser, which is what our coworkers would see. It's where I test my work. It's where we would send our usability testing peeps. Let's flip over to, here it is. All right, so again, here it is. Notice all of those little hints to us aren't here, so we just have a regular page interface. And we've got, so over here we have tabs. Some people say to me like, oh, I don't think Axure can do tabs or mobile tabs. Yes, absolutely. Tabs is one of my lessons in the dynamic panels chapter, so you can find that. Axure can do different types of carousels. So take a look down here where my mouse is in these pricing tiers. So this is quantity-based pricing, and you can see there is an arrow here, and when I click it, the carousel slides, and I can click it again and it slides back. Also, this is completely interactive. So right now I have a default quantity of 100. So this one has a box around it because it's somewhere between 72 and 144. But thanks to all the extra Axuring I've done, let's say I click on 2016. Now this one has the line around it, and notice that my quantity changed to 2016. This is just an example of how realistic you can get with Axure. And remember, all of this was on one page. So many of you who are used to Sketch or Figma, XD, some of these other ones, you're used to having to make all kinds of screens and pieces of screens for all of these possible outcomes. But all of this is happening just on one page. I'm not leaving the page, and I'm not sending anybody anywhere else. I'm not connecting this to sub pieces. It all happens here. Now, if I go back and I say I only need 500 mugs, this is going to slide back and it's going to highlight the one that matches the quantity that I've picked. 500 is between 288 and 576. What you don't see down here is that as I change the quantity, I have real math happening behind the scenes in Axure for my product, my shipping, my sales tax, and a discount code if you spend more than a certain amount. So if I say I want 5,000 mugs, this is where my numbers go. Now, Axure is bad with number formatting. It's not as easy as like Excel for dates and currency and things like that. So you'll notice that my numbers don't have the right commas in them, and that's especially clunky right now for other types of currency, like the way euros is written. I've been asking for 6 years for them to do something, and they haven't yet. There are workarounds, but they're ugly, and I've only started playing with them earlier this year. Hey, I-10. So now what if I only wanted a few mugs? I just need 100 mugs. Now notice my $50 discount went away because I am just not buying enough mugs to qualify for the discount. This saves users time and thinking. They don't have to enter a discount code. They don't have to wonder if they qualified for the code. If they're buying enough stuff, we're going to just take the money off. We're just going to do it for them. Wouldn't that be nice? So that would be great. Knowledge design, removing cognitive load, reducing the idea that they might make a mistake and not get the discount they expect. Now they're calling customer support. Where's my $50 off? Janice says, so does that mean designing repeated elements is somewhat a more manual process on Axure? Yes and no. I'll show you repeaters in a moment, and depending upon what a repeated element is in your mind, that's a maybe. It's an it depends. Aitan says, I paid for a Figma course, and now I'm like, is it worth it? What if they change everything? Should I wait for Adobe to ruin it? I think everybody should use Figma as long as they can and as long as they want if Figma is your favorite tool. That's the bottom line. You don't have to run away from it today. Nothing's changed yet. But if you start to get some hints that it's going in a direction you don't like, then maybe you change it. So let's take a look at what else this prototype does. Shipping right now is free because we picked the cheapest date. Now, dates have different prices associated with them. We're pretending that you're buying this. If tomorrow is June 1st, we're pretending that you're buying this at the end of May. And so I might say June 15th. Now I've got the shipping in there. We've also changed the wording. Now this says rush production and shipping instead of shipping. And I think we even had some wilder text in there, expedited shipping, just to give people a clue that in some cases we're just going to be upgrading your shipping, but in other cases you need it so soon that we're going to have to do rush production, which costs more, and faster shipping. So these give people a clue as to why does this cost so much. Plus 1,000 mugs are heavy. This is not cheap. Manuel says, I design on Figma and export to Axure. Works for me. Yeah. So these are some other things that you can do. We can change the number of colors. All my math is going to recalculate because all my math is realistic and happening behind the scenes. Another thing that we build into this, which I worked with Larry on it, so thanks to Larry for this, is we also recognize that some people had very fixed budgets. I wish I could have 1,000 mugs, but I've only got a $1,500 budget and I need 3-color printing, front location only, and I need it by Tuesday. How many mugs can I get if I have $1,500? Well, let's type $1,500 in. I have the Axure prototype doing the math backwards. And basically the system kind of estimates it out and says, you know, it looks like you can get 590 mugs. Could you get 591? Probably. My math was a little funky on this, but you get the idea. This is a prototype. It's not the final developer build or the real website. Let's see, would 591 mugs work? Yeah, you could get 591. But again, for the purposes of usability testing, I would say this is realistic enough that it really feels like the real web page. It feels like something I can use. What if I bump my budget up? I have 1,800. Ooh, I can get 767 mugs. Or I could see if I could bump it up. Could I get 800 mugs? Yeah, I probably could. So this is something that people could play with realistically, and we could watch them in a moderated or unmoderated usability test, see how they use it, see where there's room for improvement, and work to improve it. So this is an example of a prototype that obviously required a lot more time and effort to have realistic math and a lot of things be very realistic. But again, if you're going to be testing something, the more realistic it can be, the better. Any questions about anything you're seeing so far? Does this seem interesting, boring, worth it, not worth it? Sometimes people go, oh yeah, Axure's overkill. And I go, but you can't beat my usability testing and my own design process, because as I'm designing, I can preview it in my web browser and go, yeah, I don't like my own idea. My own idea doesn't really solve the problem as well as I hoped. I can already see this because I can walk through the steps myself. I can live this. I can see if this makes sense. So it really works for my process to be able to see if I can bring those things to life. Let's flip back to Axure, and I'll open up another prototype and show some other examples of some things you can do. By the way, there's a lot of people out there who tell me, oh, I don't use Axure because I heard it can't do X. And then I go, of course it can do that. Who did you hear that from? Oh, someone who hates Axure. Yeah, guess what? So there's a lot of things that Axure absolutely can do. Please, before you believe someone who doesn't use Axure well or often or at all or hates it, try to find me or someone who knows Axure, or write to Axure support and say, can Axure do this? Like someone sent me their Figma prototype the other day, and it was just those tabs that you saw on the website. It was that in a phone. And she said, someone told me Axure can't do this. And I'm like, yeah, Axure can do that. Absolutely. I10 says, I can see Axure is like Android and Figma is like Apple. Although the first one is better because of the looks and sleek and minimalistic design, everybody has the second one. Yeah, and again, I could make this more visually designed if I wanted to, but we were trying to test our interactivity concepts more than we were trying to test the final visual design. Larry says, this is about the amount of coding that UXers might want to know. We don't need to know specific languages like Python. Right. I don't have to know any coding to do Axure. This is what we call no code. But I do have to think like a programmer because I have to think about things in micro moments. I have to think about when someone clicks on this, something drops down. Yeah, this thing drops down. And how does it look and how does it work? You know, we have to think about these micro moments that we take for granted because the developer builds us a thing that drops down. Now we have to make that work by saying, ooh, when people click on this, something drops down or something goes back up. So we do have to think a little bit like a developer. I'm not going to joke and say developer thinking. But we don't have to write any code. No code was written in the process of this. Rakesh says, Axure gets the realistic prototype hands down, but when I faced some lag when the conditions execute when I built a heavy enterprise application. Is there any optimization for that? Yes, I would have to see your prototype, and I would also want to know what version of Axure you used, because Axure gets better with each version, and I'm not seeing much lag. I did see some lag in an enterprise prototype that a client made that had 2 freaking huge repeaters and some listeners, auto-running processes, and some other stuff. The lag can also happen if you have a lot of high-quality graphics that Axure has to load, so you can definitely save on lag and load time with fewer graphics or lower quality graphics. Because again, this is meant to be a prototype. You don't need a 2x graphic. You don't need a 3,000 pixel graphic unless it's your background. So I would say look for ways that you can optimize, because usually what slows Axure down are either super heavy repeaters, way too many dynamic panels. I've never pushed it to that limit, but that limit exists. And sometimes people don't understand dynamic panels. They build too many of them. So probably things like that. John says, low fidelity visuals, but highly interactive is my happy place. Great to see. I could do this in UX Pin. I found Figma far behind. Axure looks closer to UX Pin. Yeah, UX Pin is another competitor to Axure. So kind of that Framer, UX Pin, just in mind Axure universe. I've not really tried the other ones because I just haven't needed to. Axure's done what I needed, and I figured I'm not going to check out the other ones until Axure falls apart or gets bought by somebody I don't like or something like that. Ilaria says, the fact that Axure requires you to think about the logic behind every interaction is a main perk for me. It really helps to think things through at a much deeper level. Yeah, so there's a lot of complex stuff in here that, again, a beginner wouldn't get, and even my courses, my core skills courses wouldn't cover, because they cover beginner and intermediate skills. I'm using a lot of advanced skills in here. I'm using beginner and intermediate skills too, like my tabs. You absolutely learn tabs in my core skills course, but you know, there's a lot of more advanced things here, like here's some of my conditional logic and some of my what Axure calls cases, which is kind of like a little set of logic, like an if-then. You know, if this thing is true, Axure, do this thing. And so I've got a huge amount of cases here, but these are the things that make my math work. And so that's where some of the complexity is. Could we fake this out and have none of the math be real and ask people to imagine that the math was really working? Sure. That could work almost as well. It's not as realistic, but you could do that. So again, you don't have to go super advanced the way I'm doing. Start at the level where you are. That's all. And just as you get better with Axure, your prototypes will get that much better and more realistic. I'm trying to remember how much time I spent on this prototype. I want to guess 10 hours? 10 or 12? Yeah, it wasn't as much as you would think. This wasn't like 200 hours of prototyping. This was probably 10 or 12. I would have to look it up, but it wasn't as much as you'd think. Let's take a look at another file I've got. Let's see, maybe this one? Oh, no, not this one. Oh, yeah, maybe this one. Okay. Steph says, having real inputs is nice, especially on mobile testing. Otherwise, you need to kind of fake the mobile virtual keyboard, which is meh. True, true. Okay, so this is the file when I teach people my advanced skills course, which I'm hoping to get on the YouTube channel at the end of 2022, but no promises. These are some of the lessons that we go through, and so I can jump over to that and show you some of these. So here's all the different pages, and each page is a different lesson. So here I'm just doing a little increment and decrement. And when they get to 0, I have the minus button going away so that people cannot go to a negative number. You're welcome. Now, of course, they could try to type a negative number in here, -4. And look what I did. I built so that if you try to type in a negative number, I'll just put you at 0. Gotcha. Saw it coming. Now, of course, again, do you have to build it out that far? No, it's much easier to have it go plus, 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 minus, 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 right into negative land. So you could say how many passengers are traveling, -1. That wouldn't be as realistic, but it would certainly save you some Axure time, whereas I've gone a little bit extra to build it out further. Let's see, what's this one? Oh yeah, this is just like a little example of how Axure can do some resizing and changing stuff. So here's a little spin, and here's a little bouncy, wacky grow, just for fun. Oh yeah, I pasted in this, which all of you should recognize. Customer centricity as well, I don't remember what I say. Who's got my script handy? So that's the animation that I did at the end of the videos. That's the one that you see. Let's see, accordions with variables. So again, these are accordions. I think they're grumpy and they're not working. Now there we go. So accordions, one open at a time. Yeah, I don't think I finished building this out, but we just built the first one. So, yep, accordions, absolutely. Form field tabbing, you can control form field tabbing in Axure. So I can say, Debbie, tab to the next field. Notice that we have a focus state. This is really important for visual design and accessibility. We want to make sure that when we're in a particular field, it looks like we're in that field. And I don't have to make some sort of Figma piece to pretend that we are. You are in that field and you are typing. Malika says, I really enjoy experimenting with interaction on Axure. Would be great if they allow free trial longer than 30 days. There's lots I want to try and learn. Agree. This is validating as the user goes, which can be a little bit annoying. Let's say I want to make sure people type something in first name. I type nothing in first name and I tab. Notice that I get an error state, both visually on the field and an error message above it. Now look, this isn't good visual design. That's an ugly message and things like that. So again, don't take my lessons for their visual design. I'm not a strong visual designer. You can make that look much better. It's more about learning the technique. So now if I come back here and I say, Debbie, the error clears itself out. So that's an example of validating a form field as we go. And this lesson I do is validating on submit. Debbie, that's it. That's all I want to give you. Submit. Okay, now we tell you you've got a bunch of errors on the page. I'm just using placeholder text. Lorem ipsum, errors on the page. Do something about it. Oh, masking and unmasking. This is super fun. So password, let's say I wrote that, and let's say, now of course this icon is ridiculously big. It might not be the icon you use. Again, don't judge my visual design, just look at what Axure can do. Now I can click on this and I can see my password, or I can go back and have the masked password. I think that's a really nice thing that I can do in Axure. It's not hard to build, and again, super realistic. Simple math, well, of course, you've seen really complex math. so we don't have to talk about simple math. This is my old buddy slider on a number line. And I think we did some snapping. Yeah, there we go. So we also showed how you can snap it if someone is like a little bit off from where you want to snap at different numbers. You can have it snap back. I think if I type a number in, it should move to that point. Yep, there you go. So 7, 0. So slider on a number line, y'all. Drag to reorder. Did we build this one? Let's see. Cool. Drag to reorder. This one's annoying and is not as flexible as I hoped, and I think someone figured out how to do this with a repeater, and I haven't tried that yet. So I'm still old school on this one. I gotta get with it. Yeah, this was the one that I think somebody did. Let's talk about repeaters. We did have the question from Janice about what about things that repeat? Now, a repeater in Axure is about, what if we have a data table? So think like an Excel spreadsheet. What if we have a data table of rows and columns, and the data is standardized in that everything in a particular column is of the same type of data, and we just want that data to repeat across a model. So here we have 22 dresses in an e-commerce site, and all of them have a photo, they have a name, they have a price, they have a star rating, and then we can say, hey Axure, here's what our model looks like. The picture will be this size and over here, the title will be here with this typography, the price will be here, the star rating will be here, and we build a model, and then we tell Axure, flow our data into that model. Now, you cannot use a live data source at this time. You can only use a data source that becomes part of the Axure file, but again, this is a prototype, and usually that's realistic enough. And because of the realistic data experience, we can write sorts and filters on the data that behave realistically. So for example, here's all 22 dresses and my fake website footer at the bottom. And then I can say, only show me dresses that are between $100 and $250. So when I click this, as you can see, I get a chip up here. Disregard this thing up here, that was an experiment. And you can see if you check the prices, all of the numbers will be between $100 and $250. So the cheaper dresses are gone, the more expensive dresses are gone. We only have that in there. And I can say, only show me the dresses that are in this price range and come in a size 6. Now, the reason why we need this level of realism and why we chose to build this is because if we want to test things like sorting and filtering and interacting with a data table or a data grid, how are we going to do that if we don't bring it to life more? Because we don't know. If we tell people you want a size 6 black dress and you're worried about your budget, we don't know what they're going to click first. They could click black first. They could click 6. They could, we gave them more sizes than that, but they could click the price. We don't know. And so we have to make this endlessly flexible, which a repeater allows us to do because we just keep adding filters and they're cumulative. So we've added a price filter, and then of the items that were left over, we've added a size filter. So that narrowed it down even further. So these should only be the 7 dresses, and I have it counting up here, by the way, that are available like that. And I can X out these chips, or I can remove it from the left side, and Axure will remove that filter. So I can do this in any order. I can say, kill my price filter, and Axure says, okay, you've got 13 dresses available in a size 6. Here they are. I could add back the price filter. I could remove the size filter. This is happening completely realistically to a set of data that's internal to Axure. Again, kind of like an Excel spreadsheet. This allows us to manipulate it. We also have metadata, because notice the size is not stated here, but yet the system knows. So the system knows because we're doing a filter on metadata that you don't even see. We can also do sorts. So when I teach this in the advanced skills course, which isn't on YouTube yet as of September 2022, we do a price sort, cheapest to most expensive, though again, you could make whatever sorts you like, and we do a title sort, alphabetical. Larry says, try doing that in Figma. Yeah, I don't even think you can. Janice says, I'm trying to think of how I'd prototype that in Figma. It's hurting my head. Yeah, exactly. Because this is all realistic and happening behind the scenes. Show me the dresses that are black. So this is the cool part about that, is that if you wanted to build something realistic and really make sure you have a great solution for your real problem, for your target audience, this is going to help you know that. Yeah, exactly. Janice and Larry are thinking alike. So again, ask any questions that you have about what Axure can do, because there's so many misconceptions about, oh yeah, Axure can't do that, and you know, oh, Axure can't, you can't draw a custom shape in Axure. Yes, you can. Here's the pen tool. I'm bad at it because I'm not an artist, but you can do it. You'll be better at it than I am. So yes. Let's open up another file, see what I've got cooking. Let's see. Oh yeah, core skills. Let's take a look at some of the things you learn in core skills. Here we go. Obviously, I make beautiful custom shapes. And we practice different buttons, and we practice enabling and disabling buttons. So notice this button here is gray and it's disabled, and I don't even get a finger showing I can click on it. But once I agree to the terms, yay, this button is clickable. Let's take a look at some of the other things that we build. I teach people to build drop lists and menus by hand, segmented controllers. So you can make these from scratch and give them whatever visual design you prefer. We learn lots of dynamic panels, so carousels of different types, tabs. Manuel says, can we create a live chat system on Axure for usability testing? When a user chats, they get replies. So at my last job, someone built that, and it was amazing. It was so complex. I don't have her file, so I can't show it to you. It was a secret project. You would really have to anticipate everything that the system is going to say and what the person might answer. So unless you're giving them predefined bubbles where your path is pretty clear of what you're saying to them and the choices they can say back to you, it would just be too open if they could type anything and you had to pretend to parse that. So I would say be careful of some of that kind of stuff in Axure. You could try to fake it out, but it might not go as well as you hope. The Larry Marine Progressive Disclosure. There's no reason to ask people what their dog's name is if they don't have a dog. Do you have a dog? No. Great. I don't need to know your dog's name. Do you have a dog? Yes. What's your dog's name? So this is a great way to help forms and pages be smaller and shorter and simpler, unless and until we need to reveal that complexity or those follow-up questions. There's no reason for forms to look like old school paper forms where it was like, do you have a dog? If yes, what's their name? Yes. Which pet do you have? Dog. I don't remember what I was doing with that. Then we have the welcome page. And the way the welcome page looks is you can trap information behind the scenes in Axure that you can use later. My name is Debbie. Now, when I click continue, we're going to leave this page and we're going to go to the welcome page. You'll see it over here in our pages area. Welcome, Debbie. And so this information is now held behind the scenes, and Axure can use it for conditions, or we can just say it back to the user for personalization or things like that. I once did a medical form prototype, and we had to ask people male reproductive health questions or female reproductive health questions. So we asked people if they should get male or female health questions. And then it was a binary thing at the time, probably shouldn't be. This was almost 10 years ago. But then on the next page, based on whether they said male or female, we showed them the right set of questions for what they had chosen. So that's a nice way to go. I also teach it so that if for some reason we don't have people's names, we have a default message that would be shown. If we hadn't built that in, it would just say welcome blankness because we have no thing. But if we don't have someone's name, it'll say welcome low ego action hero. Snapshot is boring. Okay, iframes are interesting because iframes allow you to drop another page into your Axure prototype. That page can be external. For example, here I've dropped a PDF from the American Revenue Service, the IRS, or that page can be internal to Axure. And the reason why the internal page to Axure thing is interesting, which I have down here, I have a little thing that scrolls, is someone said to me, oh, someone said you can't do this in Axure. It was a picture of an iPhone, and they had built the prototype on the picture of the iPhone. Now, of course, you can run your Axure prototype on your phone, but if you just want to have it on the screen looking like it's in a phone, you can use the iframe. You can take an image of an iPhone, you can build your prototype, and then you can iframe that page into that space. Now, Axure is not great at widths. It does not have fully responsive design. It has adaptive design. So you have to decide your sizes, ahead of time. If you are designing for a phone that is 480 wide, then you need to make a prototype that is 480 wide. And then you need an iframe that is 480 wide. Otherwise, this is going to crash and burn. You can't have a 480 wide prototype and say, ooh, what if it's an old iPhone and it's, 360 or whatever. Axure's just going to cut it off. It's not going to reflow everything. It's not responsive design. So you do have to plan ahead for things like phone sizes or even browser sizes and things like that. But you can plan ahead. Beach Cabanas is a page where I like to show people things like how we can do a pattern or a color going fully across the page, which looks a little bit more modern. And these are two different lessons that we do with pinned panels. So one just pins a panel at the top of the page, and as we scroll, it stays in place, which is very common on websites now to have something pinned to the top. And on apps, we often have something pinned to the bottom. So pinning makes sense. And then we can also do this type of pinning, which is when people start scrolling, you get a mini header that appears like some sort of reduced thing, and that's what sticks. But when we roll back to the top, that goes away because we have the full header there. So you've got some options there. Adaptive views. Let's see. How can I? Oh, nope. Where did they move it? Nope, not there. Where's my adaptive views? Where did they put it? Or did it not end up in this file? Maybe it didn't end up in this file. Let's check. But again, Axure does have adaptive views. They are not, yeah, I don't have adaptive views on this file. It says adaptive views. They're not adaptive views. The end. So that's not here. But you would have to pick your breakpoints. You cannot just do endlessly responsive design. You have to pick your breakpoints. My desktop is 1200 or 16 or whatever you think. My tablet or no tablet is 768. My phone is whatever. There you go. Breakpoints, the end. That's it. Let's see if I have another file handy. Any other questions about what Axure can and can't do? I think these were most of the ones I was going to show. This is an old one. Yeah, we've already seen some of these things. So, yeah. And we only have a few minutes left anyway. So let's go back and do cheesy cube zoom and see if there's any questions about Axure with our last few minutes. Remember, tomorrow is double office hours. I'll be here at 10 a.m. Italy time and 6:30 p.m. with a special guest at the later one only. So if you have questions, you can certainly ask them there. If you want to send them ahead of time, check the links at deltacx.com/links. We are coming up on 6,000 subscribers completely organically and even still kind of shadow banned on YouTube. So I'm counting on all of you to let people know about the Delta CX YouTube channel. Let them know they can learn CX and UX for free. Any other thoughts or questions as I keep drinking my shake? Oops. Larry says, are you doing any Axure stuff for Concentric? No, not this time around. I'll be doing transforming toward customer centricity for Concentric. That's deltacx.com/concentric if you want to register. Manuel says, woohoo, almost 6K. I know, that's pretty cool. Janice says, that was pretty awesome, Debbie. Thanks for sharing Axure stuff. Yeah, sure. Remember, Axure does have a 30-day free trial. I agree that that's too short. Remember, you can pay for it monthly and then stop. You know, you could pay for it for 1 month, turn it off. You don't use it for 5 months, save some money. Turn it back on. Most of you do not need the higher tier of Axure. I only recommend the higher tiered price of Axure if you are going to be working with teammates where you're all going to collaborate together on the same Axure file. If you are doing that, you would need the higher level Axure subscription. Otherwise, I think almost all of you could get away with the lower level subscription. But again, I know it's unaffordable for some people, and there's something I can do about that. You can always email sales@axure.com and see if there's any way they can offer you a discount or some sort of understanding. Let's just call it that. Any other Axure or prototyping questions? Let me also check our upcoming shows. Let's see. Wednesday should be Jan to talk about service design. I'm just double checking with him on that. I'm very excited to learn more about that. Friday, of course, critical thinking as always. Next week, I still have nothing for Monday's Think Out Loud. If you'd like to submit something for Think Out Loud, please do. It's free at deltacx.com/links. So please send that over. Tuesday the 27th, office hours. Wednesday the 28th, friend of the show, Grace, will be here to show us a little PowerPoint, a big PowerPoint she's put together with some interesting ideas, and I thought, well, we'd share it. And then more stuff coming in October. I'm just booking Dr. Ari. Who knows Dr. Ari? He'll be on the show in late October, and we will be burning to the ground democratization. So come and see that. So yeah, if you have any questions about Axure, you know you can find me in our Slack or Discord communities. You can also leave a comment under this video. I answer all comments personally, at least as of September 2022. The comments aren't overwhelming yet, so I can answer them personally. Someday they might be too much. But anyway, I'll play us out of here, and I wish everybody a great rest of your day or evening, and I will see you twice tomorrow for double office hours. Thanks. Bye. and happy Axuring! Customer centricity as business intelligence. Visit deltacx.com to learn why we are